Dorset, near Bournemouth. David Sidwick, you'll give me the precise location. Here we are on the hilltop overlooking the beach of...
We are on Southbourne.
Southbourne. And
Southbourne Cliffs.
Southbourne Cliffs. We're about to head towards Southbourne, and an absolutely wonderful setting. The sun isn't quite what it might be here today, but it should come out. And the Dorset or the Bournemouth Air Show taking place this afternoon and over the weekend, and that'll be something we return to in a little bit later in our conversation. But David, the relatively recently elected Police Crime Commissioner for Dorset, tell us, if you would, a little bit about your background and what led you to seek election as the Dorset Police and Crime Commissioner.
Well, Bernard, I don't think anybody wakes up one morning and thinks, I want to be the PCC. It doesn't work like that. My background is I'm born and bred Dorset. My career was in the pharmaceutical industry and that sort of area, so big business, if you like. And I ran my own business until 2018. And then what happened was I started getting a bit grumpy, for want of a better phrase. Somebody tried to defraud me over the phone, and I wasn't happy with the response I got from the call centre. Somebody did a bit of shoplifting on the high street, and although it wasn't me pinching the Mars bars, I got involved and stopped them, but that was my high street. And I saw in the paper, literally every week, there was something on antisocial behaviour. It's gone off.
No, it's still going.
Ah, sorry. Yeah, so there's something about antisocial behaviour, and there didn't seem to be anything being done about that. And then the last thing was there was a idea of a merger with Devon and Cornwall Police.
Yes, Dorset and Devon and Cornwall, a number of years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, the Police and Crime Commissioners at the time had agreed in principle that the forces might merge. Sorry, I cut across you.
No, that's absolutely fine. Yeah, you're absolutely right. But because of my business background...
We'll head past. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
Oh, you've stopped filming?
No, it's still filming. It's still filming.
So yeah, because of my business background, I had 30 practical questions, and I tried to get them answered.
Yep.
I couldn't get them answered. And the more it went on, the more frustrated I got, because these were practical questions about service delivery, what was going to happen for the residents.
Yes.
So I started talking to the MPs about it, and went to see the PCC for Devon and Cornwall about it, and just kept asking the questions.
And at this stage, so what was this, about 2018, 2017, 2018?
2020, I think it was about 2018. Or
and
it was.
you didn't, you certainly hadn't got the Conservative nomination at that time, or had you?
No, I hadn't.
And so you didn't know at that stage that you were going to be standing for...
I didn't, but what I'd done was I got so invested in this, I decided to shut my company and run for the candidacy, and spend the first year talking to PCs in other areas, and understanding Dorset from the governor's point of view, if you like. How did it work? So I spoke to the MPs, the leaders of the council, councillors, to understand what the crime patterns were, what were the levers which need to be pulled in order to make a difference. And to be honest, campaigning to be the candidate, because you just can't rock up and be the Conservative candidate with 8 weeks to go and say, hello, it's me. You actually have to persuade 20 people that you're a good egg, then get sent to head office, do a written exam, persuade some Conservative PCCs you're a good egg, and then come back and fight with somebody else who wants a gig. So it's not a simple thing.
And your background, you are Dorset born, I believe. You've grown up in Dorset. You've pretty much, am I right, lived your the bulk of your life, if not all your life, in in Dorset, and therefore pretty vested in Dorset itself.
Yeah, well, you see, this is it. University in Bristol was the only time I've lived away. I'm very lucky that the pharmaceutical company I worked for, their head office was in Eastleigh, so I could commute.
And so that determination to see Dorset as well policed and protected as it might be, led in due course to your becoming the Conservative candidate. I think, am I right? You had some experience in local politics in getting on that journey, but it was Police and Crime Commissioner you wanted to become, not, for example, I don't know, an MP or another politician of standing.
For me, this was the only job that I wanted. Having become invested in it, having done a lot of research around it, having, for example, sat at the police and crime panels for 2 years, and seen there that antisocial behaviour wasn't exactly a top priority.
And so we get then to the elections. They were postponed. They were the most recent Police and Crime Commissioner elections, due to take place in 2020, postponed because of the pandemic. So you had more of a chance to get yourself known within Dorset, more of a chance, I'm guessing, also to fine-tune what it was that you were, the campaign manifesto that you were standing under. One of your ambitions that you set out in that was for Dorset to be the safest county in, I think you said the United Kingdom, or it may have been England and Wales. Anyway, the safest county. Do you still stand by that?
I absolutely stand by that, Bernard. This is from my business background. This is about going from, you have to have a vision, and if you don't have a vision at the top, you've got no idea how you're going to get there. And the vision seemed to be really easy. We want to be the safest county in the UK. That's an aspirational goal. There's 39 now other PCCs who will have the same goal. But if you don't strive for it, you don't get anywhere near it.
Dorset's already pretty safe. It's certainly not the least safe county by a long stretch in England and Wales. So what sorts of things would you hope the force, or indeed expect of the force, in order to make Dorset be the safest county?
What I would want a focus on reducing crime and antisocial behaviour. That's our first priority. That wasn't in the previous police and crime plan as a priority. So I'm a great believer that you get what you say you're going to do. So we put that up front. Antisocial behaviour, we started already. I had 100 days, a 100-day plan with the same priorities as what I ran on in the election manifesto.
And that police and crime plan is effectively the template, the basis on which the newly confirmed Chief Constable, Scott Chilton, he and his team of officers and staff will be responsible for delivering on that police and crime plan that you've put together.
It will be. The plan I didn't have to put together until March next year, but we'll have it done by the middle of October. And there'll be 6 priorities.
So in the stages of finalisation, sharing with the police and crime panel,
yep.
And those 6 priorities?
So the first one is to reduce crime and antisocial behaviour. The second one is to have more visible, connected police. If there was one thing people at Dorset said to me, was they felt there was a disconnect between them and the police. So we need to address that. The third one is around the issues of violence. So drugs, the hidden harms of child abuse, domestic abuse. We need to make certain we've got a grip of those. And the fourth one is something which hadn't really been mentioned before. But we have 2/3 of our area rural. We know that rural crime is kind of a hidden crime. We know that in the year to March 2020, there's a 28.7% increase in farm theft. We know that hare coursing is part of an organised crime situation. So we now have fighting rural crime as the fourth priority.
Okay, and then two other priorities beyond that. Altogether, the 6 priorities setting out the expectation that you have of the force now under Scott Chilton. The new Chief Constable, he is very recently confirmed in post. He had been the Deputy Chief Constable for a period of time, having joined from Hampshire, and I imagine you got a chance to get to know him whilst you were a candidate, but certainly get to know him better in your time as the newly elected Police and Crime Commissioner. You're putting a lot of trust in him now to deliver on this by his being offered the permanent post and his being confirmed in post now. You've high expectations of him then, and no, he's in this case the man for the job.
I absolutely believe so. There were 3 things I wanted in the chief that I was going to have. By the way, I knew even as a candidate that the original chief, James Vaughan, was going to be retiring. So I knew that this would be occurring relatively early in my tenure. There were 3 things I wanted. Was I wanted somebody who had a breadth of police experience. What do I mean by that? I mean that he had eaten the pie across the various specialities. He knew neighbourhood policing, he knew firearms, he knew about being a detective. He knew all the bits. But also, he wasn't from one force. He'd been around, which Scott has. And I wanted 2 other things. I wanted somebody who understood the diversity of Dorset. And in diversity, I mean in the widest possible sense. So not just the different religious, the different race communities, but also the fact that we have a rural community. What do the farmers want? That's different to the urban community. Scott needed to understand that, particularly with my priorities. And the last one, I think, is probably the most important one. I wanted somebody with grip, somebody who could deliver it. If we're saying very clearly that we're going to cut crime and antisocial behaviour, I want somebody who's able to do that. I believe Scott's the man.
You wrote in the online magazine Conservative Home, so effectively the magazine for the Conservative Party, right? Down towards the beach or further along?
Shall we go down towards the beach?
Let's go down towards the beach. So you wrote in Conservative Home an article that looked at the relationship that there needs to be between police and crime commissioners, or in your case the Dorset Police and Crime Commissioner, and chief constables, or in your case the Dorset Chief Constable Scott Chilton. And in it you wrote words to the effect of police and crime commissioners should not be too cosy with chief constables. So you don't see the relationship with Scott then becoming a cosy one?
I flipping well hope now. Now the reason for that is not because I want to fight with the chief constable. That's not useful either. The point has to be is the PCC job is about representation of the people. I am elected by them to make certain we have an efficient and effective police force in the county. And I'm their representative to hold the police to account. I can't do that if I'm best friends with the chief constable. So we have to have a very professional relationship. Now the myth, well it's true, is that a PCC can hire or fire the chief constable. If you get that far, then you've had significant issues.
It's too late.
Yeah. How you should influence the chief constable is by having a very well worked out police and crime plan based on the priorities of the people. Not your priorities, not his priorities, but what you're told by the people, which is why I spent 3 years full-time campaigning and hearing what they wanted. Now that's what we've got. And our chief in Dorset understands that plan, agrees in the clarity of that plan, and we're able to work together on it. That's what we need.
So you don't see then the holding the chief constable to account as being a beer or similar down the pub. There's presumably going to be some degree of formality in this. Regular meetings, perhaps in public domain, ways in which you can hold the chief and through him his officers and staff to account for delivering your police and crime plan. So sort of tangible ways. What are the tangible ways then? Have I given a reasonable summary there, or is it more than that?
You've not given a bad summary there, Bernard, which is what I'd expect from you. Yeah. You're absolutely right. I mean, at the moment, we're looking at Scott's objectives, his PDR. We're talking about key performance indicators. We have a weekly meeting where I raise community issues. And yeah, you're right. We will get to the stage, not quite yet, but we will get to the stage where we're doing effectively a public surgery.
We've got down to the picture, and I do want to come back to the Chief Constable's PDR. I do want to come back to the public surgery and the like, but let's just take a moment quickly to pan the camera around, and a wonderful setting. The sun looks as if it's just about to come out, just in time for the air show. And I'm just going to step to this side now, because just if we walk along here just a little bit further, we now have the beach to our side. Let's return though to the Chief Constable's performance. I always struggle to remember all the different acronyms that there are. PDR has something to do with performance, I know that much. And
it's the annual appraisal.
And so it's a set of factors that in this case the Chief Constable will be measured against in his delivery of that plan.
Objectives that I will want to be achieved.
In an environment where Dorset and indeed other forces should have more police officers and potentially staff than they've currently had through the UK government commitment to deliver 20,000 additional police officers. So, and the public, the transparent governance meeting that you also see taking place. So how do you see that developing over these current 3 years? You have a term now that is 3 years rather than 4. Yep. The local electorate in Dorset, where we are, will, when we come back to the ballot box in 2024, which seems a long way away.
Won't it? Here very quickly.
Here very quickly. So what, through your holding the chief to account and other mechanisms, would you hope to be able to say to them, well, look, this is what I've done, this is what I've achieved in the shortened 3-year term rather than the standard 4-year term?
I think we've got to be a bit careful, Bernard, because we're centering it all on the police end of things. The title of the job is the Police and Crime Commissioner. So there is a number of other factors which we can bring to the table. The ultimate answer is it will be what people feel like when we get to 2024. We can have the measures, we can look at what we're going to deliver, but ultimately it is what people feel like in their homes during those few months before the election which will make the difference.
Hopefully feeling safer, hopefully you're through the chief and the force delivering on the safest county pledge.
Exactly. So we're doing things already, even in those 100 days, where we are mapping, for example, the domestic abuse services in Dorset, trying to understand where the gaps are. So we can put in place things which address that. That's one example of how we're going to make a difference.
Okay, let's continue just a little bit further, and then we will be coming to the close of this conversation. I did want to turn to one area where you have national responsibilities that complement or need to work together with your local Dorset responsibilities, and that is your responsibility as chair for the Association of Police and Crime Commissioners of what was the alcohol and substance misuse portfolio.
Yep.
Now we know, let's just move around here. We know that you told me earlier on that the alcohol and substance misuse portfolio has changed its title in some way. So tell us what has changed it to.
Well, we have. I'm joint lead of this portfolio with Joy Allen, who's the PCC for Durham. And what we agreed was we wanted to make certain that we captured the whole issue around addiction. That means two things. One, it means including gambling. So if you are a chaotic gambler, then you may start stealing money. You may start falling into drinking or taking drugs because you've stolen money, and how do you get out of it? There's a whole theme there which fits very nicely with the others. And also we've changed it to substance misuse, because this captures something, for example, like ketamine, which is a prescription drug, but which is widely abused. So we want to make certain that it wasn't just the illegal drugs, but those which are actually used on prescription and are abused within that portfolio.
Now you and Joy together then are the joint leads on this. What was it about that portfolio that particularly attracted you? You know, there are quite a number of different portfolios there, and whilst I appreciate that there would be competition amongst PCCs as to which one they get, forgive me, I have alcohol and substance misuse stuck in my head, and it's not that. It's
addiction and substance misuse.
Addiction and substance misuse. It's a key portfolio. The problems that arise from this can lead people into things like domestic abuse, petty crime, more serious crime.
Absolutely.
So. Anything in particular that attracted then you to this portfolio?
Well, there's a couple of things. One is my background. For whatever reason, the pharmaceuticals I were involved with were in the areas of chronic pain and epilepsy. So you are looking at drugs which work in the same legal area as drugs very closely related to cannabis and heroin. So I understood the competition, if you like, and because I understood the competition, there's a natural fit there. I was, for example, the marketing manager for ketamine for a number of years. So if you like, I know the beasts.
Yes.
But there's more to it than that. I can tell you stories of a 12-year-old boy whose parents, unfortunately, were in a coercive and controlling relationship, who at 14 is taking cannabis, at 16 is taking heroin, at 18 is in prison for aggravated burglary. We have to do better.
And this is an example of where the PCC responsibility, a Police and Crime Commissioner responsibility, extends beyond policing into areas that actually also extend beyond crime, in that what you're describing there, the 12-year-old, a vulnerable individual who very strongly arguably, not his fault that the way in which he's been led into that substance misuse, petty crime and so on. How can those individuals be supported and looked after better, so that there isn't that route into county lines, for example, the drug running that youngsters may get enticed into. So your portfolio, a key one.
Absolutely. I mean, look, there's 4 things that need to happen. One is tough enforcement. So if you like, that's the police end. We want these guys who supply this toxic stuff to be taken down. We want them to pay for what they've done, and we want their goods and chattels taken. That's where I am on that. But we need effective rehabilitation. And I'm not certain we're getting that at the moment. I'm not certain we've mapped that we know what works. And we have to keep what works and not invest what doesn't work. But the one I really care passionately about is the third one. We have to get our messaging right with our young. We've got to make certain we're doing it early enough. And we've got to make certain that we're saying the right things. Standing at the front and telling them, don't take drugs, here's all the drugs. They know that, they can just look at the internet. We've got to tell them about the risks. We've got to tell them about the cannabis psychosis. We've got to tell them about the issues of taking cocaine. We've got to talk about the 2 young lads who don't have bladders because of ketamine addiction. And we've also got to tell them about one of my best friend's daughters who died on the floor of the O2 nightclub in Bournemouth 2 years ago for taking MDMA. We've got to make those messages. And the last thing is the hardest. As a community, we've got to say we don't want these chemicals in our society. So those are the 4 things. Many of them difficult, many of them not police, but we've got to try and get right in the future.
The account you gave of that third item, where the death in a Bournemouth nightclub, it must be less than 10 miles from where we are, maybe even less than 5 miles from where we are now.
It is.
Brings it home in that it's not just this theoretical national challenge, it's actually a challenge also for what many people may see as the very comfortable, very pleasant, largely crime-free society here in Dorset.
Yeah,
and
it's hidden.
It's hidden even, and let's just pause here now, because this is we're moving from a conversation there of the most troublesome, or amongst the most troublesome aspects of society, to just surveying the scenery here. What is an absolutely beautiful part of England and the United Kingdom. It appears, just on the surface here, pretty much untroubled by crime matters. David, I do think we'll wrap up there, remarking actually that a little later today, so we're now at about 10 a.m. I think from lunchtime today we will hear more of the Bournemouth Air Show with the Red Arrows and with much other activity. You, I think, are attending a community event with your office represented there, and that's something you'll go to.
Yep.
Probably shedding the jumper, because it is a warm day.
I think I'm going to shed the jumper because the sun's come out.
The sun's come out since we started.
Yeah.
So the air show, something you're looking forward to, I suspect.
I am looking forward to, because it's been 2 years since we last had an air show. And because of my long lead time, I remember the air show as something very special, in that it was one of the days I got to go out with Dorset Police. As a candidate, James Vaughan, the Chief Constable then, basically made whatever available to us if we wanted to take up the opportunity. And I remember air show night because A, it's the busiest night of the year, and B, I was on the response van, so dealing with the 999 calls. And I learnt a lot that evening. But probably one of the most profound things that I learnt was when I got back to the station. Somebody came in and said, what sort of evening have you had? So I told him what I'd seen and the rest of it. And I said, what do you want from a PCC? Don't say money, don't say officers, because they're coming. What else do you want? And he sat and he looked at me, and he was obviously tired out. And he said, make us crime fighters again. And that, to me, if the police are saying that to me as they did that night, there's something we need to bring back, which is why my first priority is to cut crime and antisocial behaviour.
David, a very suitable point on which to conclude this discussion. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for inviting me down to the absolutely glorious or just one part of the absolutely glorious Dorset coast. And
Absolutely.
I know that you'll have a very good day at the air show. Many thanks indeed.
Thanks, Bernard.